Hey, what's up guys, it's Renaldo here. So this video is going to ask one very simple question, and that question is, where is Dean Macpherson? You know, the Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure, the minister that came out in February and made very bold claims about this new act, the Expropriation Act, and how it isn't in actual fact this terrible thing, and how the Constitution will protect us. And if you don't believe me, he said the following. As the Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure, there will be no expropriation of private property without compensation on my watch. The guarantee of property rights under Section 25 of the Constitution is not up for debate and is non-negotiable. Okay, well, that is quite interesting. And I mean, look, if you are somebody that just sits on the sidelines and you don't really know what's going on, that sounds like a good commitment. But then you start listening to what the minister has to say with regards to the Expropriation Act, and then you start getting concerned.
This act introduces aspects that were absent also from the 1975 Act, including the fact that public interest can be a cause for expropriation. It also introduces for the first time explicitly into South African law the notion of expropriation without compensation.
No, that's not correct.
With nil compensation.
Nil compensation. And you see, that is an important point that you said, because people confuse an unlawful act of expropriation without compensation as expropriation with nil compensation. Nil compensation is clearly defined, and they're not the same thing.
Okay, and we'll get to whether the courts in...
That's right. Null compensation is not the same as zero, fuck all, nix. That is according to Dean Macpherson. But the reason that this is so important is because we have to ask, where is the minister? Because the minister clearly stated time and time again that this will not happen under his watch. And yet, expropriation laws used to take 30 million rand land without paying. So where's the minister now? Because a court battle is erupting over the expropriation of a 34-hectare property in the city of Ekurhuleni without compensation, which the previous owners claim was worth 30 million rand. Now, there's one specific area that I want to focus on here. It says here, it noted that at the time of expropriation, the owner was applying for development rights and the property was valued at no less than 30 million rand, with independent valuations since then ranging as high as 64 million rand. So we have a situation in which the Expropriation Act was implemented and the minister responsible for that is Dean Macpherson. And Dean Macpherson then comes out and tells us there will be no expropriation without compensation under his watch. Then he goes on to a show and then says no compensation is not the same as no compensation. I don't know how he became a minister with that reasoning, but hey, I suppose being so close to John Steenhuisen has its perks, right? But ultimately, what has happened now is there is, in actual fact, something that is within the courts in order to find out whether the land will be expropriated for nil compensation. Now, what is problematic about all of this is the minister, in my opinion, can stop this fairly quickly, because the minister can decide on which cases go to court or not, because he is ultimately the minister of that department, which means that he can put a halt to it and say, no, the city of Ekurhuleni can't confiscate this property or take this property without any compensation. Because as I've pointed out, it's not like the land was just dormant. There was plans for the land. And even if the land was dormant, so what? If somebody bought the land, they own the rights to it. And no government department or individual can come and say, oh, you're not doing anything with the land, we're going to take it from you. That is absolute absurdity. It's absurd that somebody would use that as an excuse and say that is fine. Now, obviously, the intention for that property is low to mid income housing. But it doesn't take away the fact that this is ultimately expropriation without compensation. The very thing that Minister Dean Macpherson said that will not happen under his watch is happening under his watch right now, as it is currently within the court system. Now, we can argue whether we should let this play out in the courts or not, but if the courts come out and decide that yes, they can expropriate this land without compensation. Then it sets a precedent, and then the Expropriation Act is pretty much in effect, and there is nothing that nobody can do about that. So the question that people have to ask is, why is the minister allowing this court case to go ahead? If he himself stated that this will not take place, and yet now this is taking place, then the question that everybody has to ask themselves is, why is the minister not stepping in and doing something about it? Well, there was an article from Business Tech that asks a very important question. Dean Macpherson must eat his words. And it relates to exactly what I'm talking about with regards to the Expropriation Act and this new, this new case with the courts in which this is taking place. But you know what the concerning fact is here is, after Business Tech tried to reach out, let me read it. Business Tech contacted the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure for comment, but there was no response. So first, the minister tells us not to worry, that expropriation without compensation won't take place under his watch. Then secondly, he goes onto a panel discussion and says that no compensation is not the same as no compensation. Yes. And then now, when the shit has literally hit the fan with this being in the court system, now when mainstream media outlets are trying to reach out to get feedback or a comment from the minister and his department, there is none. You want to tell me that nobody in the department could have come back to Business Tech and give them some feedback with regards to this article that they've been written? And also added to that is the fact that Dean Macpherson has now pretty much stayed quiet with regards to all of this. We all know that the DA is taking the Expropriation Act to court, but yet Dean Macpherson is still the minister of this act, which means that he has to enact it. So it is really confusing that your political party is taking this act to court, but you are the minister that has to implement this. And this has now created this gray area where Dean Macpherson can decide whether or not he wants to give a comment because of the difficult position that he's in. You see, this is what happens when you don't stand on principle. When you don't stand on principle, you say, oh, okay, we're going to allow this act to come in, but don't worry, my political party will fight it. Oh, but at the same time, as the minister, I will have to enact it. And this is why Dean Macpherson doesn't have a comment. He doesn't have a comment because he knows that he is contradicting himself. He knows that there's actually nothing that he can do as the minister with regards to this. But it doesn't take away that Dean Macpherson blatantly lied to the people of South Africa by saying that there will not be expropriation without compensation under my watch. Well, this is now in the courts, and regardless on whether or not you are the minister or not, this is going to decide, and there's nothing that you as the minister can do about it because you've allowed it to get to this point. In actual fact, there might be something that you can do, which is reach out to your provincial counterpart because you are the minister and tell them to drop this case. Because if this case goes to court, and maybe there might be a case where they find, oh yes, expropriation without compensation is fine, then in actual fact, expropriation without compensation did take place under your watch. And what then? Why are you not standing up for the people of South Africa? Why are you not defending this constitution? Why are you not vocal about this case in the city of Ekurhuleni? Why are you keeping quiet? And that is why the question is, where is Dean Macpherson? And I really hope that the people watching this video and people that might have the same concerns ask Dean Macpherson and the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure what's going on. Because what the minister said is not what is happening right now. In actual fact, the minister is hiding and keeping quiet whilst this case is proceeding, and ultimately what could happen is a parcel of land could be expropriated without compensation. And then what, Dean? What are you going to say then? Are you going to say, oh, it won't happen under my watch except for this one time? I pinky swear. Pathetic. And this is what happens when you don't stand on principle. And that's pretty much all I got to say. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please be sure to smash the like button. Please be sure to subscribe to this channel. Please be sure to share this video far and wide. And if you enjoy my content and you enjoy this channel, please consider becoming a member. You can do so by clicking the join button below. And that's pretty much all I got to say. Till later. Cheers and peace out.
You don't even know me, baby. even know me, that everybody see you say, airway massacre, airway massacre. You don't even know me, that everybody see you say, airway massacre, airway massacre.